Michigan's roads and bridges are in need of repair, but where will the funding come from? Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Laurel Hess and this is Comcast Newsmakers. Joining me now is the Director of Communications for the Michigan Department of Transportation, Jeff Cranson. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
So where does the funding come from now to currently maintain, although potholed as it may be, our roads here in Michigan?
Two primary sources, the registration fees you pay once a year when you register your car to get your sticker for your license plates, and then the taxes that you pay on fuel at the pump, which in Michigan is about 19 cents. It's a little bit of a misnomer because you also pay sales tax on the fuel that you buy, and that sales tax doesn't go to roads at all. It goes mostly to the education fund and to revenue sharing for local communities and split a couple other ways. But that, with gas at $4 a gallon, that's 24 cents right there that you're paying, and that's not going to roads at all.
So transportation funding has been primarily coming from this gas tax and your registration fees, and has been declining somewhat over the years? Yeah,
it kind of peaked in the mid-2000s. Our last gas tax increase in Michigan was 4 cents, passed in 1997, took effect in 1998. And they did a lot of bonding against that, anticipating that new revenue, and so that we were able to keep pace with our preservation program and what we needed to do to keep the roads in decent shape. But that started to really fall off. And then, because of the economy, people were driving less, and then we're all driving more fuel-efficient vehicles, which is a good thing in terms of national security, in terms of being energy independent. It's great, that we're driving hybrids and electric vehicles and diesels or cars that get high mileage, but those cars are just as hard on the roads. And so in effect, we're doing the same things to beat up our roads and bridges, but we're paying less to maintain them.
Governor Snyder has recently proposed for some additional funding to be given to the Department of Transportation. Is it $1.2 billion?
That's what he proposed to the legislature. Yeah, he brought that out in his budget proposal and said he wanted to raise fuel taxes and perhaps tie it to a wholesale price, so that now when you pay a flat tax, it doesn't rise with inflation or rise with gas. If you tie it to a wholesale somehow as a percentage, and then as fuel goes up, you still pay more, and that keeps pace with inflation and helps us maintain the roads. And then raise registration fees an average of about $100 per person per year, which is controversial, but that's a user fee, and that's the problem. We don't have tolls in Michigan, so
which is a good thing, right? It's controversial, and it hasn't been approved yet, so we'll see maybe what happens down the line. But until then, what happens to our roads and bridges, or what are sort of the consequences of waiting and not having this funding?
Well, one thing that the legislature did do this spring, because of the revenue estimating conference that showed that we would have more in tax revenues than we anticipated, is they decided to put $120 million just toward our federal match, so that we can just get the federal funds that we count on anyway, and an extra $115 million that we can spend system-wide, which includes counties and local communities would have a chance at that, to make some of those fixes, and then possibly another $115 million next year in the spring, if indeed we haven't had a long-term funding package by then. But in the meantime, we continue what we call asset management, just trying to maintain what we have, preserve the system, do what we can to make the money go as far as we can with the roads and bridges. But it's, we're at in the mid-80s in terms of percentage of what we call good and fair pavement. Without significant investment, in just a few years, that'll fall down into the 60s, and a few years later, and within 10 years, you'll be at like 40%. Good and fair, meaning 60% of your pavement is poor.
So we need to do something fairly soon.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
For more information on today's topic, you can head to michigan.gov/MDOT. Today's Comcast Newsmaker was Jeff Cranson, the Director of Communications for the Michigan Department of Transportation.